A barren continent, isolated, frozen. A world of grays, blacks, and stark white. Antarctica seemed like the last place on Earth man would ever want to be. Now an unusual expedition is underway. Aboard their own small craft, the Ponce family has come alone to the bottom of the world to study the remarkable wildlife of this fantastic land. It will be a journey that reveals the abundance and beauty, the frustrations and challenges of this last great frontier. Join National Geographic for this exciting voyage, Antarctic Wildlife Adventure.
It was an empire of spectacle and grandeur, a majestic civilization that flourished for 3,000 years. It graced the River Nile with treasures of the ages and left behind some of history's most glorious monuments, eternal tributes to the pharaohs, the gods, and a mysterious faith. Now, witness the enduring legacy of an ancient people and their heritage. National Geographic transports you to a land of timeless wonders. Egypt, quest for eternity. The rhino. For 45 million years, it thrived on the African plains. But now there are those who profit in its death. And a war is raging to save the rhino from extinction.
It's almost certainly an international mafia-like alliance. We are not manhunters. We are here as conservationists.
One often wonders about the human life for a rhino life. There's no joy in killing people.
We cannot compromise with sin.
Desperate situations require desperate measures.
National Geographic takes you to the front lines of the Rhino War.
Isolated and undisturbed for centuries, Australia has given birth to creatures that are among the most bizarre on Earth. Web-footed creatures with fur, mammals that take to the air, and prehistoric beasts that roam the arid outback. Witness the most distinctive assortment of creatures anywhere in the world. Creatures that survived in the land that time forgot. National Geographic explores Australia's animal mysteries.
The best ones are driven. They want to excel. They want to come back with images the likes of which no one's ever seen before.
With camera in hand, they venture where others would never go.
You always have apprehension, but driven a bit by the hum of that camera and the spectacle, you take a calculated risk.
Into the heat of battle.
If I had the opportunity to be a Vietnam cameraman again, I would do it.
From the heights of Everest to the depths of the ocean, they are pioneers and daredevils. And the distance between them and almost certain death is as thin as a lens.
I thought I was going to be very calm, but then when that big bear walked up to the cage, I felt fear.
Travel behind the scenes with the world's sharpest shooters. They capture the greatest adventures on film. National Geographic takes you to the front lines of filmmaking with cameramen who dared.
He's 14 feet long. He weighs 850 pounds. And for 100 million years, he's ruled over wetlands like these. This is his domain. A forbidding landscape of danger, of wonder, of spectacular beauty. Join National Geographic and explore a mysterious world through the eyes of its most terrifying denizen. Venture into the realm of the alligator.
Coming soon on the National Geographic Specials.
First time I ever went to a zoo, I saw the elephants and I knew right then what I wanted to do.
I can't think of any other job that captures your feelings and your heart like interacting with these animals.
We have to take care of the animals we have. Everybody pretty much has to be a keeper.
Join me, Glenn Close, for Keepers of the Wild, a new National Geographic special.
On a rugged chain of islands scattered across an isolating sea, 200 years of insularity and 2,000 years of Oriental tradition collide headlong with all that is modern, Western, and international. In past ages, this resilient nation was able to retain its time-honored ways while welcoming ideas and beliefs that swept in from across the seas. Today, it struggles to preserve the ancient arts that have traditionally given richness and beauty to the lives of its people. Now, as in the past, the fullness of nature provides both source and inspiration. Fusing metal with fire, a swordmaker forges a noble symbol of his nation's heritage, while a theatrical performance keeps the history of a people alive. Through these creators, the heartbeat of an ancient culture pulses through a contemporary society. Honored by their emperor, protected by their government, and revered by their countrymen, these are the living treasures of Japan. In the dark mists of prehistory, the turbulent waters that sweep the coastline of Japan divided the scattered islands from the Asian mainland. Later, like a magic carpet, these same seas carried art and architecture, scholars and warriors, the teachings of Buddha and Confucius, from China and Korea to the island empire. Conscious borrowers, the Japanese skillfully transformed foreign ideas into ways and objects which were uniquely their own. Their early political system was patterned after that of China, but power gradually shifted from the emperor to the shoguns. Determined to maintain the status quo, in 1639, the great Tokugawa shogunate closed the country to the outside world, plunging Japan into 200 years of seclusion. During the centuries of isolation, while Japan enjoyed peace and stability, an exquisite, refined aesthetic developed. In the West, modern science rushed forward, world commerce expanded dramatically, and the Industrial Revolution began. But in Japan, it was as if time stood still. Japan's withdrawal from the world was to be abruptly changed. In 1853, tall black ships boldly flying the Stars and Stripes sailed into Tokyo Bay. A shiver of fear ran through the empire as temple bells rang out the alarm. Along the rugged shore, samurai made a great show of strength against a backdrop of antiquated cannon, and miles of curtain were rigged to hide the inadequacy of defenses from the foreigner's eyes. But the intruders were undaunted. Accompanied by some 300 troops, Commodore Matthew C. Perry went ashore to deliver a letter from United States President Fillmore to the Emperor. Couched in the polite words was the implicit demand that Japan open her doors. Perry had lit the fuse that was to propel feudal Japan into the modern world. In just 100 years, this country has transformed itself from an isolated feudal state into one of the greatest industrial societies on earth, a nation whose gross national product is third in the entire world. Yet with all its 20th century vitality, with its fervent adoption of contemporary modes, the Japanese remain resolutely Japanese. Acknowledging the need to safeguard places of historic importance, this nation, like many others, has recognized its finest as national treasures. But in a policy unique in the world, the Japanese government has selected a small number of people as worthy of protection. Officially called holders of important intangible cultural properties, they are popularly known as living national treasures. Only some 70 craftsmen and performing artists are so honored today. Each receives a small government stipend annually. With it comes great responsibility to teach, to train apprentices, to perform or exhibit, to keep the ancient crafts alive. Their creations are enjoyed by a great cross-section of people. Some are affordable by nearly everyone. Others, like fine works of art the world over, are within the reach only of museums and great collectors. Toyozo Arakawa, 87 years old, was named a living treasure for his mastery of a craft whose history stretches back thousands of years to Japan's Stone Age. In 1930, exploring deep in the rolling hills of central Japan, Arakawa discovered the ruins of a 300-year-old kiln. For centuries, distinctive pottery had been made here, but the ancient technique of creating it had vanished. Determined to revive the lost art, Arakawa built his own kiln on this historic site. Struggling for years to reproduce the old glazes and textures, he eventually triumphed, crafting works of black seto and shino ware said to surpass those of earlier times. Beneath his hands, deliberate irregularities emerge. He says, if you put too much effort into it and get too concerned about technique, the work is all the worse for it. The wheel just turns naturally of itself, and the hands move, and somehow a bowl is made. His preference for understated beauty is closely associated with Zen Buddhism, as is the tea ceremony.
At night. Today.
Called the Way of Tea, it was used by monks as a means of contemplation. Its function has shifted from the religious to the social, but its qualities of serenity, simplicity, and naturalness endure at the heart of the finest Japanese craftsmanship. Mr. Arakawa's son has returned to help his father in the firing that will soon take place. It is the special combination of natural glazes and white clay that will fuse to create Arakawa's famed shinoware. Arakawa says, I surround myself with the beauty of nature to create. He believes if the artist absorbs that beauty, he can describe it in his works. Half underground, his kiln is built to catch the natural drafts that sweep the hillside. Day and night, over the next 10 days, it must be attended constantly for the shino and seto wares sealed within to fire successfully. This is the crucial moment when Arakawa must judge if the seto has matured. Only after he quenches the tea bowl in cold water will he know if the lustrous black glaze has oxidized properly. Expressions of the mysterious beauty that nature can create, clay and glaze, fire and water have combined in objects that can never be duplicated. Arakawa says he makes them for his own study, though each will sell for thousands of dollars. But it is the spirit of their maker and of the potters who created here centuries before him that gives the works bearing the mark of Arakawa their true and lasting value. Dancing on the breeze like butterflies, lengths of newly dyed handmade paper dry in a Tokyo garden. Layer upon layer, they will be applied to the evocative, somehow mystical dolls crafted by Juzo Kagoshima. Now 82, Kagoshima began his career at 15, working in a factory where dolls were mass-produced. But he quit, saying the plaster dolls lacked individual character, spirit, and poetry. He came to the capital and perfected his own technique, molding dolls from plant fiber and clay. His daughter and granddaughter are his apprentices. All three of them may work over a period of years to complete one of his fanciful designs. The doll-making tradition he follows reaches across 4,000 years of Japanese history. Kagoshima's inventive genius is in fashioning figures with layers of paper to give them their vibrancy and depth of color. Piece by piece, tiny bits of paper are applied with a gluey, starch-like substance. A poet of renown, Kagoshima says, "I started writing poems right after I started making dolls. At first sight, dolls and poems may seem different, but the difference between them is just material." Written in a fixed form of Japanese verse, one of his poems translates, "In this complex world, I devote myself to the making of dolls, hoping they may turn out to be gentle and contented." Preserving a unique Japanese art form, the dolls of Juzo Kagoshima are displayed in elegant homes, great collections, and fine museums. Classic, timeless, and, hopefully, contented. During Japan's long period of isolation, an urban merchant class arose. To relax, hard-working businessmen gathered in the lively amusement quarters of the cities. Here in Osaka's Dotonbori district, a rich theatrical tradition began that still lives 300 years later. Bunraku is the most highly developed form of puppet drama in the world, and Tamao Yoshida is at present the only puppeteer designated a living treasure. In this theater, where dolls of wood and cloth portray human life, Yoshida says, "It is the artistry of revealing the hara, the inner center of emotion and spirit, that the chief puppeteer wants to attain." 3 men are required to manipulate the heavy dolls that portray the main characters. Only the face of the head puppeteer can be seen. Dressed and hooded in black, His two assistants are accepted by the audience as invisible. This play tells of a samurai who seeks to avenge his father's murder. Today, the professional bunraku troupe of Osaka alone survives. But in the early days of the Tokugawa shogunate, there were many. Companies were summoned by emperors and shoguns for performances and honors. As Shakespeare and Molière wrote for the actors of Europe, the leading playwrights of Japan wrote for the puppets of bunraku. It is said that the puppets, having no personalities of their own, can attain a pure intensity no actor could match. A system of toggles and pulleys makes it possible to manipulate the hand-carved heads whose mobile features eloquently express every human emotion, including jealousy. Tamao Yoshida entered the world of bunraku at 14. Yoshida says, "From the day I started until today, every day has been training, discipline, learning. And it will be study and practice until the day I die, even if I live to be 100. During a performance, I become the character portrayed. My spirit enters the puppet to become as one." Now 62, he has 3 apprentices. They will spend many years under his supervision, sharing his dressing room, his experience, his insights. When Yoshida retires or dies, his second apprentice will take his name. Yoshida says, "To surpass your master pays the debt of what he gave you." Yoshida says, "The artistry of portraying the depth of a man's soul, that's the puppeteer's greatest challenge." Izumo, departing clouds. These skies inspired the name of a lush and peaceful region and the elegant handmade papers created there. Handmade papers have been used for shoji screens, imperial correspondence, as the vehicle of prayers and poetry, and for the sketches of artists, including Rembrandt. For perhaps 1,000 years, handmade papers have been crafted in this valley. Smoothed onto boards and set outside to dry among the flower and vegetable gardens, they give the village an aura of agelessness. Here in Yakumo, 8 Cloud Village, generations of the Abe family have followed the craft. Today, Eiichiro Abe, 78,